The takeover of behavioral health providers by Arizona firms is continuing following an audit that prompted the Human Services Department to suspend Medicaid payments to 15 organizations. But there are still many unanswered questions in this story. News outlets have sought copies of the audit that alleges some $36 million in fraud, but they also seek just basic information and they aren't getting it. Tracy, you're on the board in New Mexico in depth, and congratulations on that, by the way. And a good friend of ours, Mr. Trip Jennings, was here 2 weeks ago, just before he released, I thought was one of the most epic columns in Forever here, calling out our governor about her lack of transparency, her lack of willingness to talk about this HSD audit in any kind of detail. Talk about that column. What was Trip trying to get at there? Because there's been some ramifications since, it seems to me.
Yeah, well, you know, he was talking about, I mean, basically the basic tenets of journalism, that journalists are going to ask questions. And, you know, anytime we're talking about spending of public money, there are going to be questions about how that's done. And that's fair game. And it doesn't matter who asks those questions. If you read the open letter, one of the things Tripp was careful to point out was that, you know, he was doing this same thing during the Richardson administration, and, you know, sometimes wasn't treated so well by the Richardson administration. So it really isn't a partisan question. It really is just what is going on with our public money. And I want to point to an article that Rob wrote about the Legislative Finance Committee that just met and had, you know, we've got legislators on both sides of the party, of the political aisle, asking questions. You know, it's not about who's asking the questions, it's about what is the answer to those questions.
Speaking of which, is a brilliant segue there for Russell. Also in your publication, Bryant Furlow has a great piece called 10 Unanswered Questions About the Medicaid Freeze. That's just out, Russell. And it's interesting, as an AP reporter here, you have had to, like everybody else, dig here. In fairness, the administration, all administrations try to give up as little as possible. We understand the game, everybody gets it, but it seems like a line has been crossed here in some. What's your sense of how the administration's been reacting to this HSD thing?
You know, when they called me to tell me about this audit, we wrote one of the first pieces that this is there, and then I immediately asked, okay, well, can I see who's on there? Because I didn't even know who the providers were. They had, when they released this audit, they had the uptake on this, because when you mention Medicaid fraud, oh, wow, everybody cares about this, right? And then over time, you know, the cover-up is always worse than the crime, because you keep asking questions, we weren't getting the answers. So they lost the narrative. When you were talking about Medicaid fraud, people were very concerned. They were interested. What did you find? Let's have this out. Put this out. Thank you for doing this. Then it became the narrative became the nonprofits like, well, you're hurting us. You're hurting the economy in our little rural areas. So then it changed to say, well, why are you going after this? And then you're bringing in, God forbid, Arizona companies to help manage this. And then these questions weren't getting answered. And this happens a lot with this administration, this transparency. We have questions. A lot of times, they may have a good point on certain, but them not giving us the documents or the answers we need just poses more questions, poses more problems for them.
Sure. It's interesting about that, Rob, because it seems on that idea of it getting away, what was the exact point in your mind where this thing could have been tamped down a little bit? Because if you think about what's out there now, we've got allegations of some CEO, some mysterious CEO has pocketed $1.5 million for personal salary, and that's supposed to be the be-all, end-all that we should all go, oh, okay, these guys are on top of this and everything's hunky-dory. You know, you see what I mean? Once you start with this, you can't catch up, as Russell's saying. You got to come out straight.
Yeah, I don't. This whole thing, the narrative has pretty much been the same from the beginning. When you think about it, it's been the competition between trying to protect the confidentiality of this criminal investigation versus transparency, openness, and that's what this entire thing has been from the beginning. But there have been instances, you know, the team builders couple from Santa Fe charged with $1.5 million, the CEO of Southwest Counseling this week on KOB TV, having a private plane, spending $165,000 there. So there's little drips and drabs out there.
But what drips and drabs of what? See, that's my question. Is that fraud?
Yeah,
you see what I mean?
But then on the other hand, though, I mean, in fairness, Gary King, the Attorney General, isn't releasing this thing either. Neither is the State Auditor's Office. And you would think from a political prism that Gary King would have every reason to want to release this since he's running against Governor Martinez if he wins the Democratic nomination next year. So I was talking to Steve Terrell from the Santa Fe New Mexican about this as well, and I'm not sure where this thing is and where the truth lies. Sometimes, many times in politics, we think if A, then B.
Right.
Sometimes it's maybe not A and it's maybe not B, or maybe it is A and it is B. But there is, the fact that this thing is shrouded in secrecy doesn't help.
Is the benefit of the doubt gone for the administration on this one, Alexis Schertzinger? Are people inclined to
I don't think
believe
so, but it's weird to me because it was good press. Like Rob was pointing out, we're looking after Medicaid fraud and trying to figure out what happened here. That's a good storyline for the governor's office and for HSD and for everything. So the lack of transparency around this is hard to understand. And I would say also the weird part is the extreme measures. Like this arbitrary cutting off of funding, ending everything without any real reason to the public or even to some of the providers why that was happening.
That's right.
Maybe we didn't have to go quite that far. Maybe we spend half
I would
the
jump in
funding.
and just say one thing, just throw it out there. If this were mortgage bankers allegedly stealing money from using HUD funds rather than healthcare providers allegedly taking money from Medicaid, would this narrative still be the same? I don't know. A lot of the people who are generating the pushback against this are the healthcare providers themselves.
Well, there's an interesting point on this, Tracy. I read in the New Mexico Mercury, that site's very interesting. There was a piece written there. Why, if there was problems, why couldn't other New Mexican companies have been given the opportunity to step in and take over some of those other New Mexican? See, that's a very interesting question to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge question, but it's one of part of just a huge ball of questions that surrounds all of this. But yeah, I think it really kind of rankles people that, are there no New Mexico providers who could step in?
Right.
And again, and another point that I'd like to make is, we're talking here about the most vulnerable population in New Mexico. I mean, some of the most vulnerable people who are being affected by this. And again, that's another reason why it's so important to have answers to these questions. And second of all, I don't know if anyone saw in the Journal today, there was an article about a longtime provider who's just been destroyed. Destroyed by this. The woman who runs Hogaris, it's closing its doors, and it's just not good for the people of New Mexico and some of the people who we need to be looking out for.
Yeah, on this overall idea of transparency, it caught my eye, of course. Laura Paskus from your publication wrote a great piece this past week as well about this. It wasn't quite about HSD, but let's get back to this idea of transparency and this governor. She went out there to get elected talking about transparency, really hammering transparency.
Right.
Nobody could have argued the position given what we had just been through for 8 years. How does this work for her now, this idea of transparency?
I don't think it's really working very well. I think there needs to be some show of good faith on the part of the administration that they really do want to be transparent, even with media organizations that they may perceive as having a different
What would be the
viewpoint.
perfect scenario for you as a reporter? What would you love to have from the administration right now?
Back.
Calls back.
Pretty basic.
Beyond the basics. Right. Is it the providers? Is it everything? You want everything? Do you need just a little bit? I mean, what's next that a reporter
Well,
needs
like
here?
aspects of this have leaked to the Journal, for example. I think that we should all have access to at least something, some kind of here's exactly why we're not revealing this. We're afraid that, if we had just a little bit more detail, I think it would alleviate some concerns that this is completely arbitrary.
Russell, what would you need?
It's it's a totality. It's not just this. It's also the fact that we don't get full calendars every day.
That's right.
Coming from Boston,
That's right.
Deval Patrick would give you his calendar the day before, sometimes 2 days before, a list of where he is, not where he's going to dinner, but who I'm speaking with, fundraisers, going out of town to Washington to this fundraiser, open or closed to the public. We get press releases maybe an hour or two before they happen. Wow. And we have to decide where we're going to cover it. We can't even put it in the AP Daybook. So I think that, in addition to that, just the totality, it makes it frustrating.
How does this impact the public? See, this sounds all esoteric. It's an inside-y business. How does this impact the public?
We can't plan a news coverage.
Yeah.
So, if there's the coverage of something that we need to ask the governor on the spot that's open, we can go there and ask. It could be related to this, to her press appearance, or it could not be related. And then we can actually cover and say, this is how your money's being spent.
Right.
Right. And a lot of times, when we've asked her, and she, after being pressed, she shows us like her husband hunting trip, right? There was nothing there that looked, it was shady, but the fact that it was hidden so long poses the question and adds to this narrative that, you know, something's going on, even when there's not.
Sure. What do they need to do in 30 seconds? What's next for this administration to show good faith?
Well, I think they need to just come clean about the whole audit, you know, and even if they don't have to release it, because I think, you know, some of our reporting at New Mexico in Depth says, you know, they don't have to, but they should.
Right.
Just as a matter of good faith.
Sure, absolutely. Now, coming up, given the turmoil in Egypt and elsewhere in the Middle East, what is the future of Islamic political movements and how is terrorism shifting in this changing world? We talk with an expert and former CIA program director.